Hello and welcome to the Foxcatcher preview. My name's Julian Valence, joined up in Sydney by Nick Ashman. It is a massive weekend down here in Melbourne. You're actually even coming down, Nico, for Caulfield Guineas Day, 3 Group 1s. How are you, my friend?
I'm pretty good, mate. I'm pretty good, up and about. It took me a while to get up again after last Saturday, the Foxes down there. But we made it eventually, got through Monday's show. Here we are. A little bit going on up in Sydney. We've got those sort of new races, the Allen Brown and whatnot on Saturday. $2 million Hill Stakes. Not sure if that's worthy of $2 million, to be fair. I think you probably could have got the same race for about $500,000. But I do think the best racing this weekend, without doubt, is in Caulfield. 3 Group 1s, small fields, I would say, in each of them, except for the Guineas, obviously. But some pretty good talent there. We learn a little bit more about the Cox Plate picture, don't we, on Saturday with the Might and Power. Does Buckaroo back up and go into a Caulfield Cup, or does he kick on to the Cox Plate? And Treasure the Moment, of course, all eyes will be on her. And most importantly, the betting flux, because we're locked at 5 apiece in Pin the Tail, mate.
Yes, that is correct. We are indeed. But it's interesting you say about the Hill Stakes, because that Might and Power has been savage, to be honest. I mean, I think there's probably at least 4 or 5 at least that probably would be running in a Might and Power Stakes down here in Melbourne if it wasn't for $2 million up there in the Hill Stakes. But that's a point that can be discussed at a later date. Let's get to this preview. Let's get to Caulfield. It is true position, the entire circuit. We will be on a good 4, I expect. Look, it does suggest there's possibly up to 2 mils of rain, possibly Friday and Saturday. But even if that lands, there's still no way I think we're going to be not on anything but a good 4 surface. Wind's going to be impactful here. It's not going to be the northerly or southerly, which we know into the chute can really dictate how races are run and won at Caulfield, but it is a 25 to 35 kilometre westerly. What is that for the punters out there? It's a headwind in at the straight, obviously, and it'll be hitting them on their left flank, sort of in that chute area. So it's worth keeping in mind in terms of how I think this track will play on Saturday. I think the chute pretty even, but in saying that, the return on investment on leaders is big, so I want to have them on my side in those 1,000 to 1,200 metre races on Saturday, but I think you could probably win from anywhere as such. And the circle races, well, I think forward of midfield is going to be an advantage. So compared to the chute where probably it's a little bit more even, I think forward of midfield is going to be an advantage in the circle races. And again, I want to be pushing towards those leaders, those horses that can probably settle in one or first or second outside lead. I reckon they might be advantaged on Saturday. So just give them a little bit bump up in your ratings, I reckon, when you're doing your maps and your pricing. Just quickly, anything from your lane guys in terms of how they think Caulfield might play on Saturday to add to that stuff that I've added?
Got the report right here. Good to soft track, expected. Probably good, but just a small chance we might just nudge into the soft zone. Expected to play just off the rail with lanes 2 to 7 to provide the bulk of the winners. Stalking the tempo, not setting it. Horses settling 4th, 5th, 6th in that type of area will have the best spot. And if the track does happen to slip into that soft zone, then the wider lanes just come fractionally more into play, which means horses a little further back in their settling positions are more in play as well. But at this stage, you sort of just want to be stalking, ready to pounce, just a fraction off the inside part of the track in the home straight.
Very good. So that is the track intel for Caulfield Guineas this week. Let's get to the feature race here, Nico. It is the Caulfield Guineas. Let's get to the points bet market. And there's been a bit of action. Sort of Tuesday, final field came out morning. Then they did the barrier draw pretty well immediately. So I was up probably from 1 p.m. Tuesday. And Wodenton and Autumn Boy have sort of gone back and fro from each other, to be honest. Obviously, they bring the Golden Rose form line. So they've sort of been chopping and changing at favourite. Wodenton sort of sits at the top of the tree now. Outside of that, Vin Rock sort of single figures, and the other horse that's been supported late last night. We obviously do this show Thursday morning. Late last night, I'd say one of the bigger dogs has played into the space of Navy Pilot. So we'll get to that horse a little bit later. But the race doesn't end there. Let's get to my speed map. And look, my speed map might be very different to yours. It might be very different to a lot of others out there. I found this a really tricky speed map to do. So it's just indicative. Don't hold me to it. I thought Blinker's first time, Nico, Vega for Luck might roll forward from gate 7 and Romantic Encounter might try and come across. Now, whether Romantic Encounter can come across and actually get outside leader, I don't know, because there's so many external horses that have drawn wide that'll want to come across. Vinrock gets the winkers for again. He has to come forward. Horses like High Vol drawn wide, Hillier drawn wide of go forward, Stay Cosmic's drawn wide. It's got the blinkers first time, go forward. What I do know is horses like Observer and Navy Pilot should get beautiful runs in the first 6. Whether they're leaders back and 1-1, I'm not so sure how that map sits, but I think they definitely get the beautiful run in terms of the first 6. What do you say about this? Because interestingly, I've got Wodenton going back, but here's another one that James McDonald might be able to go forward and try and find a backside as well. It's just that risk that if he doesn't get it and ends up 3 wide, no cover, then it becomes a bit of a trick for him.
How I always do my maps, Julesy, when I really want to screw it down is I look at the raw speed, the average speed per 200 metre split horses went through the first section in their lead-up runs. The problem with doing that this race is the Golden Rose was run on a pretty hard track, like borderline firm too. So it's very difficult, even if you make adjustments, to know exactly how that's going to settle in. And then, of course, you've got horses going up to a mile for the first time. You're trying to get in the head of trainers, trying to work out, do they think their horse is a genuine miler? Do they think it only just gets it and therefore needs a slightly softer run? Or do they think it gets beyond a mile and therefore wants to apply the blowtorch a long way out? So there's a little bit to play out. And as we said, it's very difficult assessing spring 3-year-olds going up in distance to a new trip for the first time. So I think if Wodenton goes back, his chances diminish. We've also got to factor in if our track intel, what you've got, what I've got, which sounds pretty similar, is on the mark, and that means you sort of want to be midfield or forward of at least, then those horses drawn wide in the Caulfield Guineas where it's their grand final, they don't have much past this, I wouldn't have thought. They're probably going to have to push the button and run the risk of being wide, no cover, because if they go back, they just simply cannot win. So I agree with you about Observer. I agree with you. Who was the other horse you mentioned?
Navy Pilot, I think, sort of
Navy Pilot gets the right run. Just on Autumn Boy, I think he's one that probably people want to sort of discuss a little bit as well. I don't mind him 3-back the rail. Vega Luck, I will say this, I know what you mean, blinkers on. Just that raw speed he's been going hasn't been that quick. So he's going to need to sort of come outside his comfort zone to get there. I don't mind 3-back the rail for Autumn Boy, just because I think if they go along quick enough in front because of that track pattern that might emerge, he should get the chance to get off the rail at some point, just whether or not it's too late. That's going to be the big question.
Yeah, I think if 3-back rail's okay, and I'm not saying it's ideal, but it's okay, 4-back rail's a disaster, I think, because then you've just got too much in front of you to accept your fate, really. In the end of the day, you're sort of in the hands of other horses and other jockeys. So really fascinating in terms of Autumn Boy and where he ends up mapping. But I think it could be a really messy map, to be honest. And if depending on what's happening earlier in the day and how this track is racing, whether they need to get on their bike early, then it becomes really, really messy for some horses. And I think it's got the feeling, we talk about this a lot with some races, you can just see that 2 or 3 won't get the luck at some stage. I don't think every horse is going to be afforded the luck when they need it. So it just could become really messy. So you want to try, when that sort of sets up in your mind that that's what's going to happen, you want to be able to say, okay, what's going to be the horses that are going to stay out of trouble for me? What are the horses going to be in the first 6 that are going to create their own luck? And then from there, you can sort of create a basis of what you might want to do on the punt for that. So I want to go through the sort of 3 main lead-ups here, Nico, and we've sort of got the overlay of the last sort of 200, 300 metres of these races, and just go through what kind of race shapes they were as they head into this 1,600 metres at Caulfield for the Guineas. So we're going to start with the Golden Rose, and I've just got my number next to it with the graphics, which is plus 7.5. So the race has gone enormous. We spoke about it. Obviously, Rivellino, Wodenton, Nepotism, and Autumn Boy come out of it. It was 2 seconds inside standard time. The last 400, 200, pretty good compared to the rest of the day. But I think for the punters out there, this no doubt is the best form to come out of. But as a punter, we have to decide, well, Wodenton's got beaten 4. He sort of was maybe in not a bad ground compared to, say, Autumn Boy, who was wide and sort of given no hope the way the race was run. But he was beaten 8 lengths. What do you want to do with this race overall?
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Fast overall time by Vark went through the roof. You touched on the fact that the beaten margin was 4 lengths. What we know about Wodenton is he's Group 1 quality, but he needs a slightly weaker Group 1 to win it. The Golden Slipper was sort of around an average Golden Slipper, and he couldn't quite get there, but he got within the bees, you know what. The size produce was, again, sort of only average in terms of 1,400 metres size produce figures, and they went really fast in front. He was very brave, beating half a length when sitting 3 wide, no cover. And then again in the Golden Rose, another Group 1, he fronts up again, he runs second. But this time the race rated well, and he was a distant second. So we've got a really good handle as to where Wodenton's at, and that is he's probably just a genuine sort of benchmark Group 1 3-year-old, and 2-year-old last season, but he's not above that. So he needs a below average Group 1 to actually win a Group 1, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Autumn Boy, we don't really know because not much went right for him in the Golden Rose. That was his first crack at the elite level. What I think you've got to do there is look at the SP. The SP was $4.40. The SP said he was as good a chance of winning that race as Wodenton, basically. One was $4.20, one was $4.40. So, and you just got to say he had no hope. Fast run race, wide run in transit. That's a recipe for disaster. And I think I would have loved to have seen this. If this was the Australian Guineas, I'd be much more confident. Flemington, I think, is going to be a much better track for Autumn Boy than Caulfield. That said, if they can hold that spot 3 back along the rail, follow Navy Pilot. I think Jamie Millam's on Navy Pilot.
Yep.
Let her do the donkey work. When I say the donkey work, obviously that horse is going to get an economical run, but let her find the path clear and follow her into the race and then get off her back. It's a little bit of a low percentage play, but if it comes off, you're right in the hunt, I would have thought, over the last 200 metres. That's how I see things panning out from a Golden Rose point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. So no doubt it's the best rating race that these horses are going to be coming out of in terms of the form profiles. Let's get to the Caulfield Guineas Prelude. Now, again, my rating sits there at plus 4.5, and I'll get to that shortly of how I've come up with that. But Vega for Luck, Space Rider, Stay Cosmic, Planet Red come out of this race. Now, this was a really slowly run race, half a second outside standard time. Now, they've come home best last 400 of the day with those numbers that should suggest 11.56 that last 200. But that was... They had to do that because they just went so slow. So my question is, with these 4 horses that come out of this race, do they have the strong enough foundation for possibly a genuine 1,600 metres? Because that was a really soft 1,400 metres, that Prelude.
I think what you got to look for in situations like this where some of these are getting to this distance for the first time off a soft run is, without getting too pedigree and breedy-like, you've got to actually look at the ones that you're pretty confident are going to be a 2,000-metre horse, the ones with natural stamina reserves that even if it is a fast run race and they don't quite have the right setup, the natural stamina reserves will take them through the line anyway. The horses that are only just going to get a mile, who haven't had the right setup, they're the ones that are going to be vulnerable off that race shape, Julesy. So to be honest with you, he's $51 and he's got a shocking gait and he probably doesn't map that well, and he's only got 1 testicle, so he's got a few things against him. Number 13, Stay Cosmic, is a horse that I just think is probably a touch over the odds. He was $3.40 in the Guineas Prelude. The jockey jumped off. It was Jamie Millam and suggested that they put blinkers on him. They put the blinkers on him.
Yep.
She obviously jumps off and rides Navy Pilots. That's not a good thing. But I just keep an eye on him at around the $51 mark. I don't think he's the worst chance if you're playing in trifectas and first fours.
Beautiful. The third of the main lead-ups is the Stud Stakes, 1,600 metres at Moonee Valley. So they've had the go at 1,600 metres this prep. So that's the positive if you're looking at the Stud Stakes type of profile. Vinrock, West of Swindon, High Vol, Prestige Ole, Hillier, Romantic Encounter. Now, again, rating terrible of this race, like 3/4 of a second outside standard time. But the last 400 really poor, that 12:38, which is actually the second slowest of the night. So the one thing about this form line is that they're going to have the grounding at the 1,600 metres. So no other horse coming out of it is probably going to come from a 1,600 metre race that they've had. This group of horses, albeit this rating I've got really, really poor, just might be strong at the finish because they've had a go at the mile this prep. That's the only thing I'm tying up for this one. If you like these horses, that's what I think you have to pin yourself to.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I mean, what happened to Prestige Ole? I know he wasn't the best out of the barriers in that race. Is it just because he do we have any thoughts there? He was sort of a $10 or $11 chance and he went really poorly.
Yeah, I think a few went really poorly, to be honest. So
is it the Valley? I don't know.
Like, again, if you like the horse, then you're sort of hoping that it was the Valley. Like you're hoping.
Yeah.
It's just the race
mean, we're
is rated so poorly, and if you've gone poorly in it, it's like, can you turn it around so quickly to now be a Group 1 winner?
And I think Vinrock's probably, again, using that SP, dragging it through, same conversations we had coming out of the Guineas Prelude. We know, he's already a Group 1 winner. Not sure about him at a mile, but we'll find out on Saturday whether or not that is his go. He didn't sort of bob up there at Moonee Valley, but he did have some excuses after missing the start. He'd probably be the one I'd go with out of that race, but his map's not particularly good for the Guineas, Jules.
No, that's right. They've got the winkers back on. They'll ride forward. Like, they just sort of more or less, without being disparaging, they were just there for a look around, a peep around, bit of a bowl around, just to get the legs sort of moving from when he missed the start. They just went, well, we'll just ride negatively. You had to sort of be on speed that night. So, he's the one that you'd think could probably, but he has to try and get probably outside leader and not be facing the death. They're the three main ones. And then I just wanted to open up the left field horses, because there's four of them, but two of them are emergencies, and they are Navy Pilot and Observer. Now, the Navy Pilot race went 1.5 seconds inside standard time. It was really a pretty good number overall. And Observer took on the older horse that had sort of had a let up. But again, I've got a pretty good number for it. It was at 1,300 metres. It's just whether it's going to have enough conditioning in it to get the 1,600 metres. But we spoke about these two horses that I think they map really well. If they ride them positive, they can be in the first 6. And do you want to play in this race? We'll quickly get to this. Do you want to play in this race at all, the Caulfield Guineas 2025?
Yeah, I mean, talking a couple of weeks ago, Observer was the horse that I thought might come out and win at Sandown first up. Maybe Navy Pilot fits that profile a little bit better now. I can play both those horses in this race. I just don't think the rest of them are any good, or that good anyway. And these two are probably the ones that might be able to spike to a new level. So they'll do me.
Yep. So I think the Golden Rose is the best form line, but I'm really worried about the sticky maps for both of Autumn Boy and Woderton. And I'm bang on with Nick Ashman here. I've backed Navy Pilot, and I'll be backing Observer as well. They're the two that I'm backing. Hopefully from a map perspective, as we talked about, I think just being in a high percentage play is how you can possibly win this Caulfield Guineas. You might not be the best horse, but you just might have the best situational map for the race. That's the Caulfield Guineas 2025. All right, team, another big Group 1 on Caulfield Guineas Day is obviously the 1,600 metre open handicap, the Toorak handicap. PointsBet market, let's have a look at it. Sepals, well supported since Wednesday night, since the market's been available at PointsBet. Good support for this horse, obviously, coming out of the Rupert Clark, did carry 52, maybe a half over 52.5. Gets 57 here, but it's a much weaker race looking at it on paper. Evaporates in the market. Lazura, 2 from 2 this prep. Transatlantic in the market, and then you go sort of further out to horses like a Lucy and Feroce. I'm going to let you have a look at this speed map, Nico, and then I'll pick it apart. But it's an interesting one because speed profile is interesting to see which actually possibly could lead, because there's no real natural leader overall. But you think someone's going to be aggressive here to take this up at some stage.
Well, Sepals loves to sort of sit outside the lead and control. I always think that sometimes outside leaders are more controlling position than leading itself, unless you're a loose leader. So, but in this instance, he's going to have Feroce come across up to the mile now, be nice and handy. And then you've got Transatlantic drawn directly to the outside of Feroce. Now, presumably, Sepals and Feroce pair off at the top spot. Transatlantic's not going to sit 3 wide. So my gut feeling is that Transatlantic, it was ridden a little more conservatively last time out, might just push right on with it now up to the mile. And I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily for Sepals, because Transatlantic's a pretty strong front runner, should be able to kick well into the straight and should give Sepals the opportunity to get off the rail if and when he decides to. So I think they're the first 3. I'm not 100% locked in that that's how it's going to happen, but I feel like that's probably it. Also, just at a mile, Sepals probably can use himself a lot more over 1,400 metres around Caulfield. At the mile, he might be a little bit better served taking that little bit of a sit. But we'll just see how things pan out for him. Feroce, as I said, outside lead, I think. Desert Lightning, I think, then just drops into the 1 out, 1 back. The one that most people, in my map that I've got, that most people won't have is Damask Rose. I just went through these horses' speed figures. It can be on the back of Sepals if it wants to be. Now, the caveat on that is that Athanatos and Craig, who obviously jumps off Sepals and onto Athanatos, Craig Williams, he might say, right, if I can hold the back of Sepals here and follow Sepals through, then I get the last crack at him. And he'll probably feel as though that might give Athanatos some sort of a Smokies hope. And you've got to remember that with Athanatos, all three of his wins have come fourth up or deeper in preparation. He's only had, I think, 6 runs fourth up or deeper, and he's won 3 times. He's got a 50% strike rate when he gets to this stage of prep or deeper. So I don't think he's the worst chance in the race. I think he might fancy his chances. If he does that, then it pops, just forces a couple of other horses out wide, and that might inject more pace in the race. And if he does that and injects more pace in the race, I think that also favours Athanatos, who wants to truly run miles. So horses like Lazura, I think, look, she might be able to get outside Athanatos, and Pinstripe maybe drops back a pair further. I'm not convinced I've got the back sort of midfield area 100% right. It just does depend on the intent from certain jockeys. But otherwise, she is a chance to end up back along the rail. Evaporate, he went forward last time out, so maybe he goes forward again. Again, it just depends on what they want to do. Do they want to sit back? I'm sort of, it's my map that I've had to do, but I'm not convinced it's going to pan out exactly that way, if I'm being perfectly honest.
Yeah, and I think everyone could have a go at this one, and probably I think you're right. There's those key horses. I think Evaporate's the one where people could go, well, they'll probably at least try and use him up and try and find a position that forward of midfield to possibly, sit in that 1-1 if they could get there somewhere, maybe where Desert Lightning is. It's sort of drawn inside it, so maybe they try and use that up. I think, definitely the 2 horses that have drawn wide, like a Lucy and Willie Do It, just have to take their medicine and they go back. So I think if you want to be with either of those 2, you've got to know that you're going to have to circumnavigate the whole field to get past them. There's no other way for them. I really take your point on Athanatos, because this is where a person that really methodically thinks through races, and I'm not saying not all jockeys do, but Craig really would be like, you know what, I know the best asset and the strengths and weaknesses of Sepals. I want to be on its back. I don't want to be another pair back. I want to be able to be right there stalking it. So you would think from gate 1, he would probably just give a little squeeze to Athanatos to make sure it finds the backside of Sepals, from no other reason other than he knows Sepals really well, I think, and he wants to be as close as he can be to it so he could make a move. Whether Athanatos is good enough or not, that's going to be up to the horse. But Craig, I think, will do everything in his power to try and be on that horse's backside. Did you want to play into this race?
Yeah, look, I think Athanatos is a good little each-way play at around that $17-18 or whatever he is. As I said, when he's never won first, second or third up in a preparation. He's a horse that's always taken races to bring him on. He comes out of the Evaporate race. The market's giving Evaporate a really good chance. He was good back towards the inside there, beaten less than a length and a half by him. He meets him, I think, a kilo better at the weights. Craig jumps on. It can only be a positive. No knock to Daniel Stackhouse. I thought he rode him well at his first 2 starts, but Craig Williams is winning more Group 1s this season than any jockey in the land. And he's, like I said, he's had 6 starts, fourth up or deeper in the prep, I think, for 3 wins and 3 placings. He's never missed a place fourth up or deeper in the prep. So at that price, Julesy, I'm going to play him each way. You'll have your heart in your mouth, but I think it's worth a bet.
Yeah, fair enough. I just had this as a really flat open market. Couldn't sort of have Sepals as short as what he was, but in saying that, I couldn't really then find another bet around him. So I sort of had 4 or 5 all sort of clumped together, and then when you're playing into that space, there's just no value at all trying to back 3 or 4 of them. So staying out of the Toorak handicap.
One horse, matey, to just keep an eye on from a futures point of view is like a Lucy.
Yeah.
I think she's going to be a better Flemington horse. So what we're looking for her, for the futures players on Saturday night before we get to the review show on Monday, she charged home with the best splits of the race behind Lazura and the Let's Elope. She was very good at Flemington there. And it just screamed, give me a mile at Flemington. She's now going to use this, I think, as a lead-up run. She might win the Toorak, don't get me wrong, but particularly for the Empire Rose in, 2 or 3 weeks' time. So I think if you're playing on Saturday night, just keep an eye on Like a Lucy. If she's charging home in this race, she'll be pretty hard to beat in the Empire Rose.
Yeah, and we've seen her sort of, I think she probably, had a go at the Oaks at 3-year-olds, as they all do, to try and extend out a bit. But I think we'll see her as an older mare being 1,600, possibly 2,000 metres. I think the Empire Rose is bang on right, that you say, and I wouldn't be surprised if she couldn't win the Empire Rose or was really competitive, then they did that quick 7-day back up into the 2,000-metre matriarch. I think that's the end of her distance, that 2,000 metres. I think Waller in the camp might probably think she's a 14 to 1600 metre horse, but I reckon that might just sit there like a bit of a beacon in the ocean that might matriarch if they can't get a win in that 1600 metres Empire Rose. Don't be surprised to see a horse like Lucy on the 7-day back up into the matriarch. That's the Toorak handicap. Let's get to the Might and Power Stakes. And as we said, very, very small field, knocked around by the big prize money in the Hill Stakes. I don't think there's any escaping that. Points bet market here, don't have to do too much. Treasure the Moment in the red, Buckaroo with a 2 in front, and then you go out to Globe, and then a bigger price, obviously, He's a Shocker, and that's as simple as that. In terms of the map, pretty simple here, I think. I mean, Globe will lead. I think Treasure the Moment from that inside draw probably could be a loose lead. I know you talk about loose lead a little bit. I think Globe probably has that loose lead. I know it's only a field of 4, but I don't see them as a field of 4 being really tight. I don't think it's a 2-length, 2.5-length margin. I think, Globe, for its only hope of winning this race, has to be a loose lead to try and break them up. My thoughts. Treasure the Moment probably there, and then I think Buckaroo lets it unfold, and He's a Shocker probably does the same. So that's how I think it is. I'm assuming you'd be something similar to that, Nico?
Yeah, 100%. I think Globe has to have a loose lead to be any chance of winning, and I think that then probably just makes it a little bit tougher for Treasure the Moment. She's going to be sort of doing what she had to do last time out in the fee and chasing a pretty bold front runner, which in that case was Pride of Jenny. So interesting one. Interested to get your thoughts on this race as well. I thought Buckaroo might be the early value.
Yeah, this is an interesting race because it's a small field, so it becomes really tactical, which we always talk about. But it's tactical in the way that we know that Globe will probably run them along. I don't think Globe's going to sit up and go, well, I've got the best last 400, 600 and me. He just doesn't. So they have to try and be aggressive from the start, albeit in a small field. And then we're going to see if Treasure the Moment has got through that bout of colic. So
yeah,
we can sort of bring Pin the Tail into this as well, Nico, because we're going to talk about the reasons of, what our sort of starting price, position on Treasure the Moment is. But you look at her profile this prep, and the first up run at 1,400 metres was enormous. So the number, I think, in terms of Group 1s in this spring is the best number that any horse has been able to do through all what else we've seen thus far, albeit, mind you, the Golden Rose probably sits by itself because they're 3-year-olds only. But for older horses, that number that it did first up for me is the biggest one, plus 8.5. So it was the run of the spring. Then we had the issue with colic, goes 27 days into Moonee Valley Pride of Jenny race, starts $1.50 there. And to be honest, that race wasn't run at a brutal Pride of Jenny type of race shape. It was just genuine tempo. And to be honest, it rated just poor, average, nothing outstanding. So here, the quandary for the punter out there is you want to take the $1.75, $1.80, whatever it might be, Treasure the Moment. You'd love to, the $1.75, $1.80 looks beautiful off the first up Memsey run. 100% it does. But had the issue, and then the rating at Moonee Valley only fair, and now you know that at some stage she's going to get out of her comfort zone chasing Globe. And it's whether she's back to her ultimate best or whether it's knocked the absolute guts out of her. And I don't know the answer to that, and we're only going to know the answer to that Saturday after the running of this race, and then we can talk about the Cox Plate after that. But that's the tricky part for me. And then, as you say, Buckaroo's the one that's going to stalk them and be, probably within 2 lengths of Treasure the Moment at some stage. And it's whether Treasure the Moment is the Treasure the Moment first up or she's just flatlined. And if she's flatlined, Buckaroo will beat her.
J-Max on Buckaroo, Shin's on Globe, right? 2 of the best jockeys in the land.
D-Lane's on Treasure the Moment. That he's one of the best jockeys in the land as well, so we'll use that.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's not, but what I'm saying is Shin knows that the way to beat Treasure the Moment is by rolling along in front at a really good gallop, because if there's any chink in her armour, it might still be there. And he knows that Pride of Jenny was able to get a beaten last start, not by going helter-skelter like she does, but by going well above standard through the first section. So he's going to do that. And then J-Mac knows that he'll get the opportunity to drop down on the back of Damien on Treasure the Moment as well. So I think J-Mac will just stalk Treasure the Moment and just stay with her and try and get away. The question becomes is Buckaroo's going to back up into a Caulfield Cup, how much do they want to use him early in this race? If Treasure of the Moment sort of sits 2 lengths off Globe, who's, say, going 4 lengths above standard through the first section, then if you're Buckaroo to be on the back of Treasure of the Moment, you've got to probably still be going above standard through that first section of the race. Do they want to do that 7 days out from the grand final, or is this the lead up to the Cox Plate? Yep. Next thing to discuss for this race as well is, do you play early? Well, here's the scenario. Treasure of the Moment, as you've just touched on, comes out of a pretty poor rating being stakes. The thing is Buckaroo comes out of an Underwood Stakes that didn't rate that well either. We saw Sir Delius, as good as he is, he was $5.50 out to $7.
That's a really good point. We need to stop that and say that right now. That is a really good point that you mentioned there, that people are saying, oh, Sir Delius, he won, blah, blah, blah. Absolutely. But the market spat him out here. He was $4.80 out to sort of $8.50 the exchange. It's a really good point. So the market was saying this race isn't the right race. So fantastic point that you mentioned. I just needed to really further highlight that for the viewers out there, that yes, just because Sir Delius won, the market was against him big time. And so they're not going to be charging into Buckaroo off that Underwood Stakes.
Well, what you got to, whenever you want to play early in a race, you got to ask yourself, what's the market going to do late? Because if you don't know what the market's going to do late, then how do you know if you should be playing early? So when I look at this race, I want to back Buckaroo, but I'm a little bit worried that they're going to use this and back up in the Caulfield Cup. I don't think that. I think he's going to go to the Cox Plate. That's what I think, but I'm not convinced. And then I'm like, but is he really going to trim up off that 270 at the moment? Because the race he comes out of, the Underwood Stakes, the horse that won that race and won it well, Sir Delius, was $5.50 out to $7 last week. So does he trim up off it? And having known what the market does with VS Estina, they're holding on to a number from, 1974 on her at the moment. So, they've only got to go back 2 runs to hold on to that market.
Buckaroo has got that 2,000-metre Turnbull run where VS Estina got him, which was a big number. So maybe they pin that to him, and then you could say, well, they could charge into him off that, possibly.
They could, but it's 12 months ago as well. And,
but that's the same. It's the same logic as Via, though, isn't it? It's the same logic as Via.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, what are they going to hang on? What are they going to hang themselves on? Do you hang yourself on Treasure of the Moment 2 starts ago of 1,400 metres, 1,400, 2,000, not overly relevant, but we know she does get 2,000 metres? Or do you go, nah, third up last spring, Buckaroo absolutely smashed the clock in the Turnbull, beat all but Via when she was actually flying. So we'll take that one. It's a tricky one to unfold. I couldn't smash anything in early markets in this race, but I want to be with Buckaroo. I tell you what, if you're a small punter and you don't like betting huge money, I mean, there is a small chance that Globe could pinch this. If Buckaroo is going to back up into a Caulfield Cup and Treasure of the Moment's not with us, then Globe probably just trots and wins.
Yeah, it's not the worst idea at all because he just keeps going and keeps out in front, and maybe leaders are advantaged on Saturday, so who knows. Quickly pin the tail. It is 5-all after you got me with VS Estina again. That anchor of a SP, $2.60 last week in the Turnbull. You were $2.75, I was $3. Look, we're really close here with Treasure of the Moment. I've just obviously gone $1.95. I actually was probably bang on $2, but when I saw you $2, I just went the lower firm. So anything $2 plus you've got, and anything south of $2 I've got. And I think we've sort of explained our reasoning behind that. So pin the tail there, might and power, and obviously the Toorak handicap, all covered. Righto, Nico, big prize money up in Sydney, Rose Hill. Rail out 2 metres the entire circuit. What surface are we going to be on, and what's the intel you can give to the punters out there about how this track might play?
Yeah, dry weather for the rest of the week, Julesy, so should be on that good forward. Just pay attention to the watering as always. Rails in run will be an advantage, so look for horses from lowish draws that can get that rails run. In the home straight, just a fraction off the inside, lanes 2 to 7, best place to be. So if you're a back marker, you're going to have to cut the corner and sort of weave through the ruck as opposed to circumnavigating them. And I think particularly in those sprint races, 1,200 metres or less, low draws, a bit of gate speed, the ability to settle in the first 4 or 5 is going to be a big advantage on Saturday afternoon.
That's crucial information out there, viewers, to be honest, because there's big fields there at Rose Hill. So rails in run suggesting it could be a bit of an advantage. I think I'd be looking at that big time for how these races do evolve up at Rose Hill. You're set, mate. What have you got for us? You're going to kick off for us with an each-way play in race 4. I like this horse.
Yeah, Roman Consul Stakes has provided the last 2 Coolmore Stud Stakes winners, so keep an eye out for something I'm about to say in a moment's time for a futures play at $51. That should get your attention. Number 7, Napoleonics, run the best last 200 metres of the day in both starts this campaign. I think he was about close to half a second faster than the next quickest over the last 200 metres first up. So he's clearly got way more ability than the races he's been contesting. Now, this is a big step up in grade. He's taken on the Golden Slipper winner, Mahuna. But, gee, I tell you what, he couldn't have been any more impressive last time out at Warwick Farm. And I think on a ratings point of view, knowing that she's a good benchmark, she's a solid, and she's well weighted in this, dropping back down from her first up win in the Heritage. You could easily have a saver bet on her. But I just think on a 1 by sort of 2 basis, Napoleonic gets his chance to maybe knock some of these more high-profile 3-year-olds off. And I'd be taking some of the $51 with points bet right now for him in the Coolmore Stud Stakes, because if he runs probably top 3 in this race, and I really think he can do, I've got no doubt that they'll probably head down there and have a crack at Group 1 glory, because you're finishing up not far off the Golden Slipper winner from last season. Well, I think that's good enough to have a crack at the Coolmore Stud Stakes. Moving on to race 5 now. This is a listed race, the Tap Craig worth, what's it worth? Oh, half a million
probably.
Bucks. A billion, 1,400 metres. This one's a little bit more sensible. Again, I'm looking for a horse that can get a rails run. Now, Barnacle, because it's trained by Waterhouse and Bott, might go to the front, but it might also just sit in behind the tempo. First up over 1,100 metres, this is a horse that ran in the Brisbane Winter in the JJ Atkins. He's a sort of 14 to 1,800 metre horse, maybe 2,000 even. We'll see what happens. First up behind Mahuna in the Heritage Stakes, settled sort of back in the field in a slowly run race where they zipped home. He was never going to figure in the finish there with his type of profile, yet he did a really good job to finish a length off Mahuna there. Acacia was unlucky not to win, and Beeman comes out of that race. So good form lines up to 1,400 metres. He'll have plenty of work poured into him. He'll be ready for this. $500,000 on offer. He'll be winning that. He's the best bet of the day, I reckon, in Sydney. And then sticking with the Waterhouse and Bott team, go to race 6, the Gloaming Stakes, probably the best feeder race for the Spring Champion in a couple of weeks' time. I've got another futures bet here for you, and we're going to back him on Saturday. Number 7, Shangri-La Boy. Not sure about where the rest of these horses are at. They've had a few chances. We know they're okay, but none of them are necessarily that good. It does pave the way for some of these horses coming from left field to possibly put their hand up, win a Gloaming, and go on and win a Spring Champion Stakes. Shangri-La Boy, when I look at his sections, he was allowed to go through the first 600 metres of that 1,400 metre race last time out in a pretty slow sort of canter. And he just quickened. Every single sectional from there on was around about 11.4 to 11.7. He doesn't have a sharp turn of foot, but what he can do is maintain a high cruising speed. He looks ideally suited out to the 1,800 metres here in the Gloaming. I'd be backing him at around that $7 or $8 on Saturday. And I'd also be backing him at $26 with points bet in futures markets for the Spring Champion Stake, because I think he can run a big race on Saturday. And that, no doubt, is where he'll go.
Beautiful. I love that. So Rose Hill, Intel, then obviously some set for Rose Hill Saturday, but also a look to bigger picture races as well that you can get on the PointsBet app to have a crack at. My set at Caulfield, competitive day, some big fields involved. Going to start in race 1. Horse called Mr. Verse. I think he just got to forgive last start. It went out to 2,000 metres, whether it was just a bridge too far. It was behind Gilded Water. I think from the 6 to the 200, it really accelerated, and then it just completely hit a flat spot. It had probably done enough. I think the cute draw is a big advantage for this. I think they can probably settle a little bit closer. I know they always like to get back with this horse, but hopefully they can use that gate to advantage. I'm going to give another try to Mr. Verse. I think he's a really nice galloper. In the same race, down at 53 kilos, a horse called Hot to Go. It's just been carrying big weights. I think 60 kilos last start, then 60 kilos and 59 3 starts ago. Drops to 53 here, but gets Craig Williams, but also gets gate 1. And I want him to be aggressive and I want him to roll forward because I think that might be a major play and advantage for Hot to Go. I think Craig might be able to outthink a few of these jockeys. So I want to be on those two horses in race 1. In race 2, this is a really good fillies race over 1,200 metres, but I'm going to give Barari a really good each-way play here. I'm just going off I know it was Mildura, but I just had that number massive. And then it had a bit of an issue, went to a 1,000-metre race. Point Barrow went past it like it was stuck to the ground. That was fine. And then 1,200 metres Moonee Valley last start just had no luck whatsoever. I know it's drawn really wide here. I would be suggesting to the connections that I would go forward on this horse. I think maybe you could go with Vain Girl. It's drawn wide as well. And Blake could probably just sit outside the lead here. And I think it's a big advantage here because a few of the others, including Point Barrow, don't have that gate speed and probably have to roll back. I just think you might be able to get a few of them on the hot Barari, but I think the only chance to be able to win is if you roll forward in race 2. Race 3, again, want to be with some new, fresh blood or horses at least down the bottom, near the bottom of the weights in Plymouth and Braden Star. I think they both set up really well. I think they've got good profiles to win this race. I think a few at the top have been there, done that. I'm off them. And then we have to just wait a while, and then we go to the Guineas, and we've spoke about this, but Navy Pilot and Observer, backing them both at big prices. And then we get to the last. It may be one run short. It might be a 1,400 metres Flemington dry track, but I want to be with Fancify. It gets me again. It gets D-Lane, which I think is a big, big plus for this horse. I think it's drawn 1. I think it can probably control this race. I want to be with Fancify as long as this track continues to dry out. And just extra 2, if it got back to its old figures, and last start it didn't have much luck, just sort of poked in between horses, 16, 17 bucks. I just want to have it on my side as well. So a few 2 bets in each race there for some of these, but they're big day, a big field, so I think we can get some value throughout the day. That's my Caulfield set. Righto, Nico, Larry's Letterbox, they've been flying in here, there, everywhere. Obviously, people want to know what's going to happen in 2 weeks' time. I mean, we're actually, just very quickly, we're going to do a big feature on Car Ying Rising after that trial on Tuesday. You sent out some stuff which I think was bang on, and we're going to do a bit of a focus on that and just that whole Everest race because it is a real unique race with that Hong Kong horse in the race. But what is the Letterbox doing for us this week?
We've got Aaron's Mannequin. I'm not sure what to make of that, but he's written in, this is shaping up to be a red-hot Cox Plate. You know more about mannequins than me, my friend. Do you think it's a 4-horse race or Sir Delia's too good? Look, my thoughts are that Sir Delius deserves to be favourite more so than Via Sistina. He's beaten her comfortably last weekend, and I think he should be the market leader. The problem is he is now being trained for a Melbourne Cup. I'm not saying he can't win a Cox Plate, but the miles are going to be poured into his legs, Julesy. So he's going to be his second run at 2,000 metres. So when a horse has been trained for a longer trip and it has its second run at the same distance, it can often race a bit dour. He was already pretty dour. He sort of took a while to get there. We saw that in the Underwood. We saw it again in the Turnbull. Via's got a lift off what she's doing. I think Antino's probably the early value around that $7 mark. He's a bend horse. The other thing with Delius, he races better at Flemington than Caulfield. He wobbled around the corner at Caulfield. I'm not sure how he's going to go at Moonee Valley, whereas Antino, Doomben Cup, loved the bend. He was up outside the lead basically when they got in the home straight. He loved the bend again at Caulfield in the 2-rack. He loved the bend again at even in the Turnbull. He sort of made his run around the bend. So he's a real bend horse. For mine, he's perfectly suited to a Cox Plate. So I don't think it's a 1-horse race. It's just Sir Delius. I don't want to bin Via Sistina completely. I think Antino deserves to be a bit shorter. I think we learn a bit more this weekend. It wouldn't surprise me if Buckaroo comes out and wins that Might and Power and wins it really well in fast time, and all of a sudden he's in the picture for a Cox Plate as well. What do you think, my man?
Yeah, and I think the other horse you got to add in who's Treasure of the Moment. I mean, she's still, if she can get back to that plus 8.5 that she did in the Mems, and we know she's good over 1,600, 2,000 metres. If she can come out and beat whoever she beats on Saturday, whether it be Buckaroo or Globe or whatever, and be really impressive, then I think she puts her hand up as a horse that's really versatile, can be right in the picture as well. And then maybe you've got that real external factor that we're not really sold into. But if a horse could, for some reason, could come out and be really impressive in a Caulfield Guineas, well, then that throws a 3-year-old in the mix. But it does set up for the last time ever to be at Moonee Valley to be one heck of a Cox Plate. So it's going to be an absolute belter.
Wouldn't it have been great to see Bivark go to the Caulfield Guineas and win that from the front the same way as he did in the Golden Roads, and then everyone going, hang on, this is the horse I want to be on in the Cox Plate? Sadly, we won't get to see it.
We won't. Righto, Nico, let's get to our quaddie numbers and plays of the day. Let's start with the quaddie in Victoria. It's a tough day, it really is, but we're going to sort of go skinny late, so hopefully we can get a split early. Numbers from the beginning, 3, 4, 7, 9, 11 for me for the first leg. Then we go big here, 2, 3, 6, 8, 14, 16. and then we skinny it right up in those last two legs. And hopefully, again, we're sort of leaving out a couple of favourites here. 6, 8, 9 in the third leg, and then 4, 6, 8 in the last leg. $270 gets you 100%. Cut it any way you want to whatever you feel comfortable with. New South Wales, your quaddy numbers, please, Nico.
Yeah, leg 1, 1, 2, 3, 6, 14, 15. Leg 2, 2, 3, 5, 6, 9, and 10. Then we bring it a little bit skinnier here. In leg 3, I think Waterford's the only danger to Mr. Mbini, who I think should be winning one of the features up here. And then in leg 4, 1, 3, and 7. So what do you got there, Jules? You got 6 times 6 is 36, times 2 is 72, times 3 is, what's that, 216, I think, for $100.
Beautiful.
Someone else can calculate that for me, my man.
All right, fantastic. So they're the quaddies for Victoria and for New South Wales. Let's get to our plays of the day. You can start us off because we're going obviously race book order, so you'll be ahead of me chronologically in the race clock. It is race 5.
Race 5, number 2, Farnicle. I think he either leads or sits behind the lead. He's a proper 1,600 metre horse that was not suited in a slowly run 1,100 metre race first up. He did a very good job to get about a length off Mahuna, the Golden Slipper winner, and I think he'll peak on Saturday afternoon in a $500,000 race.
Beautiful. So that's race 5, number 2 for Nick Ashman up at Rose Hill. And Caulfield Guineas Day, well, it's a really tricky day, but I'm actually going to play in the Caulfield Guineas, and it is race 8, number 8, Navy Pilot each way. I know that sort of double figures price has been knocked in a little bit from last night, but I still think I've got it a little bit shorter than what it currently is skipping around in the marketplace right now, Navy Pilot. I really like the fact that I think it's going to get the map, and I reckon third up here, it is ready to explode. Its only other run at 1,600 metres was actually in the JJ Atkins, and it was in the market. It was given absolutely no hope back on the inside and actually charged through the line. I just think this has been a beautiful set program for this horse, been off Broadway a little bit, and I think just because it's not as strong a year, I think it can be the one that can get over the line in the Caulfield Guineas. I speak of Navy Pilot. Nico, fantastic again, as always. I'll see you on Saturday at Caulfield, my friend.
Yeah, what are we doing? Yeah, what are we doing this week, mate? Last week was pretty good.
Last week was great. This week I think it's a little bit more low-key, mate. We'll just be sort of staying out of harm's way, looking after some people.
Is Hutchie coming?
Well, Hutchie's on air. Hutchie will be on racing.com. So if you want to get your Hutchie fix, you'll get him on racing.com. We might get him after the races. Strap yourself in. Thanks, pal.
See you, mate.
What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.